It's Jack Pinter. How you doing, mate?
Matthew, it's Friday. We've made it through another week of lockdown.
And what time is it? What time is it where you are?
Well, it's Friday, but it feels like that, kind of regressed to about 20,000 years ago. Just been in this cave for so long, the cave that I call my home. This cave, this is like this old form of society that we've been reinserted into in this period.
Viewers, we'll be using metaphors during the broadcast. So what have we got? Hunter gatherers. What are we thinking?
Well, I mean, I guess that's what it feels like that we've gone back to the cave in this period of lockdown, and we've been working more as hunter gatherers, going out, getting the things we need, maybe using things from the store, finding different ways to survive in this environment. And Matthew, one of the things that I'm really fascinated about is what did we start to really want to gather at the beginning of our moment in the cave? Loo paper. Like this was like, I don't want to be caught in the cave without toilet paper. That would be the ultimate tragedy.
My cave can. No, very. It is so primitive, wasn't it? And of course, the fights in the big stores over the deluxe 75 pack were fairly primeval, fairly basic as well. Very lovely. So we were gathering and doing various things there. Yes, and just being more resourceful. Being more resourceful. I remember going to my food cupboard, finding coriander seeds, and thinking, let's give it a go. Putting them out in my troughs, and guess what? When my seed order was cancelled by Amazon, cheers, mate. And then coriander plants are now coming up, and I'm feeling very sort of Tudor, I'd guess, in terms of where we are there.
Well, we're gonna come to agriculture in a moment because that obviously is the next phase. But what did hunter gatherers do? What did cave people do? To be politically correct, they invented tools. They made tools and they started working with tools. And it just what it's made me think about is what are the tools that we had to develop when we've been stuck here in our own caves during lockdown. And as I mentioned to you briefly, I had a leaky pipe underneath my sink. I'm not a plumber. I'm not a handy person, but yet I had to become Homo habilis. I had to become the handyman. And I watched a video on the internet, something that the cave people didn't have the opportunity to take advantage of. And I did manage to find a way to fix that leaky pipe. And this is a tool that I'm going to take with me when I emerge from the cave. And I also kind of learned how to do fitness at home. I've been trying to learn one thing every week. Take a tool, develop a new tool while I have this time in this primitive environment and bring it out of the cave.
Living in the copper age, I believe, referring to the pipes under your sink. Love it. But I have to say, and you are an extraordinary man, young Mr. Pinter, that you get on with it and learn your 12 bar blues and the rest of it. I'm sure many viewers have got, I haven't learned a single thing. I've got a ukulele I've never even touched. I bought all these books from Amazon. I've read half of one, but I don't really understand it. So big ups to you, mate. Big ups to you. No, so
But
tools, resourcefulness, really.
yeah, and I think people probably have discovered new survival tools. They may be resilience tools, tools to get along with the people that they find themselves stuck in a cave with for much longer than they ever imagined. So I think it's good to give people an opportunity to reflect on that. And certainly, you guys can put down in the comments what tools are you bringing out of the cave as lockdown ends.
No, exactly. For me, disgustingly, and this is the confession of shame, a subscription to Now TV. I never thought I would go that low, but hey, such is life. Desperate times call for desperate measures or desperate subscriptions. So the lockdown is easing, shops, potentially travel, lots of things going on here. So, in terms of our continued metaphor, which ancient age do you think we are entering?
Well, I think we're entering into the age of community, and community was really created when we started, like you with your coriander seeds, to practice agriculture. Now, there are all sorts of theories about why we started agriculture. Some people say it was an accident. We found things growing, and we thought, oh, wait a minute, here's a steady food supply. Other people say it started because we people figured out they could make grain alcohol, and they thought, hell with this hunter gathering thing. Let's just sit around and get drunk off our crops. But obviously, this allowed societies to create surplus, to create to create abundance. And I suppose this is what we're going to emerge to and come into this this collectivist society. We're going to go back, send our kids back to school. We're going to go back to the office. We're going to plant, as we have done before, all the things that we do to sustain our livelihoods.
Yes, exactly. So there's a stepping out, but the new skill that's obviously fairly required is this sort of re-relating to other people. So just a word on civilization, which I believe is really a term which refers to how we live together in a community. And so my own reflections on this, I've been fairly expansive. It's a bit of a me time. I've got to actually sublimate my personal needs, listen more to engage with other people, and that is how I must be to be in this thing called a collective, a group, a community. Any thoughts
Yeah,
on
and
that?
of course, as a hunter gatherer, you can just sort of bugger off and kill your own, kill your own dinner and collect your own nuts, and you don't even really have to engage with anyone as long as you can get enough calories in order to survive. And you're so right that by coming into by deciding to come together in community, we all of a sudden have to develop these or use these skills that actually we as human beings had as Homo sapiens had developed pretty well, better than Neanderthals, right, whose brains were bigger. We were able to cooperate better. I know that seems hard to believe sometimes when we think about our relationships with others. But the other thing, Matthew, is and this is the irony, is that we know that when human beings, when our ancestors gathered together in communities and worked, tilled the land, suddenly they had to work a lot harder.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
when we
yeah, yeah.
emerge from lockdown, I imagine when we re-enter these communities, we may find the exact same thing.
No, exactly. So some people were really enjoying the idea of furlough. Furlough, there is still a servitude to the company. And if you go back, it's going to be pretty tough. That's going to be quite a I mean, I hope you enjoyed your holidays, but there is going to be a culture shock going back to that. Very
Yeah.
powerful. Yes, so working conditions. What do you say? Yes, it's sort of rich part time, almost filling out a lottery ticket, isn't it? Hunting the plains with your stick and coming back with a week's worth, versus a lot of hard graft. A lot of hard
Yeah.
graft. So what else is going to happen? What can we do? What's going on up here? What's the potential?
Well, I guess we just have to look about just as we develop these different ways of being and different ways of living, civilization wise. I guess the question is, what sort of consciousness are we going to emerge with from this lockdown, and have we had an opportunity to reflect on that? And I just want to refer people to this concept of spiral dynamics. This idea that we as civilizations have progressed through these different levels of consciousness. The first one, beige, being survival. That's what we as cavemen and hunter gatherers were doing. Then we moved into sort of more tribal societies. So it's, I belong to this tribe and I don't belong to this one. So a lot of mysticism around that. We move into that's called purple. We move into red, which is this individual, like I'll screw you before you can screw me. Survival of the fittest, so social Darwinism, definitely a part of that. We move next into blue, this sort of let's let systems run things. Let's let organizations process rules. I mean, this is the growth of religion. Then we have this sort of individualistic streak in orange. We rely on science and business. We may believe that capitalism can cure everything, can fix all the ills of our society. As we've realized that probably doesn't work, you move to a green phase, which is more about how we're all connected together, how we all need to take care of our environment. We can certainly recognize that. We move to yellow, which is more about systems. How can we use all these different aspects of all these different levels? And finally, there's turquoise, when we just sort of get into this Zen mode where we realize everything is perfect as it is now. And I guess the question is, as I said, what sort of consciousness do we want to emerge in this moment when we've had this opportunity to self reflect? We've had this opportunity to reconsider how things are. Will we actually do things differently, or will we just rebuild everything as it was before with all its flaws, with all its imperfections?
I love it, love it, love it. I'm just reminded of just one tiny thing. In 1666, the Great Fire of London, or whatever it was, 1668, and all these rubbishy little wooden houses all burnt in these little streets, and it was a total mess, and there was no plan. And Sir Christopher Wren didn't just want to build the cathedral, he wanted to make Milton Keynes out of the city of London, Londinium. And what happened? Everyone said, forget it, mate. I want my crookedy little house on my crookedy little street. They wanted to snap back to the old, the familiar, the habitual. They did not want revolution and radical social change. So that's one piece of evidence that not a lot will happen. I mean, being more optimistic, what do you think might take? What do you think might
Well,
move?
I looked at language and I think of the word reform and just think of that really as reform. So how can we use this opportunity to reform things? And one thing that I'm fascinated by, if someone had said to me 2 weeks ago, there's this that we got this idea we're going to defund the police. Now, if 2 weeks ago I would have went, what? What does that mean? How could that possibly? No, that's absolutely. I don't even know what you're talking about. And now it's something, at least in the US, is something that not only has been done, has been practiced, and now I'm aware of that, but is also considered as a viable option. So when you call the emergency services, let's say someone's having a mental health problem, let's say they're paranoid, you phone emergency services, maybe the best person to show up at the door is not someone with a gun and a badge. I mean, maybe there is a better way, and maybe it is like Christopher Wren in London. Maybe it is best to just start over instead of tinkering around the edges. Let's just start over. Let's
Yeah.
just wipe it all out and build it up as we would want to from the ground up. And I think there are opportunities to do that. And I'm looking forward to seeing
Yeah.
what will come, what will emerge from this.
And there's two very obvious. Air travel and cycling would be two completely obvious ideas. There is a sort of revolution going on right now. Air travel is massively reduced and the cost will go up. Apparently, I tried to buy a bike the other week. There's none left in London. That's a revolution. And we can continue with that. And my local council have been sending out emails about that they're responding to it and building more cycleways. That, if it is sustained, will absolutely be a revolution.
And do you know what? Speaking about cycling in London, I mean, I'm a cyclist, and I know that after the two bombings at 7/7, there was a huge upturn in cycling because people thought, I'm not going to get on a train where there's a bomb, and it was in a way, again, a little bit of creative destruction. That I'm not saying, I'm not excusing the terrible things that happened. No, 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 absolutely not. Absolutely not. But it is these moments in time that can create seismic change, just as we're seeing all over the world.
Yeah, fantastic. So, what in a parting shot? Anything that the viewers? I also have a feeling they're going to be too busy a bit later. What should they be reflecting on now before they're rewilding and they're released from the lockdown? What should they
Yeah.
be reflecting on?
So I'd say two things. What tools are you bringing out
Love
of
it.
this lockdown that you can really really use as Homo habilis, as that handy person, and also how do you want to emerge?
Yeah,
How do you want to emerge with your consciousness, and
conscious. Yeah,
what do you want to do with whatever level of consciousness
yeah,
you choose? And then just to be clear, all those levels that I described earlier, they all have merits. But what do you
yeah,
aspire to,
yeah.
and what steps are you going to take to realize that?
Love it. So there's a consciousness and there's a manifestation of that consciousness in the real world after lockdown. Lovely, lovely, lovely. We've gone a bit deep, deep in the cave. Jack Pinter, superstar Neanderthal. It's Indiana Jones and David Attenborough. I'm getting the general vibe, but it's all good.
I did
Lovely,
my best.
lovely to have you on the show. Thank you, viewers. You can start thinking now. All right, guys. See you next time. Maybe Jack will
Take
see you
care.
again too.